I never thought anyone could see me this way again. At 29, I felt invisible, like life had stolen my glow. Then he appeared, a 41-year-old billionaire, and with just one look, he made me feel alive, desired, and unforgettable. I had no idea my world was about to change forever. Before we dive in, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications because you won't want to miss a single twist of this story. I always thought 29 would feel like just another year, but instead, it hit me like a quiet weight I couldn't shake. I caught myself in the mirror one morning, staring at lines I hadn't noticed before, wondering if anyone would ever see me the way I used to feel seen. My career was stable, sure, but it felt like a routine that barely recognized my effort and my love life. Well, that was practically invisible. I remembered being 22, confident and fearless, believing the world was mine to conquer, my laugh brighter, my skin glowing, my heart ready for anything. Now it seemed like that energy had dimmed, replaced with hesitations and doubts I couldn't shake. Sometimes I felt like I was standing behind a glass wall, watching life move forward while I faded quietly into the background. It was lonely, frustrating, and strangely invisible. I never expected my world to shift in the way it did that afternoon. I was running late for a business meeting, my mind tangled in deadlines and to-do lists, feeling the usual undercurrent of self-doubt that had become my constant companion. And then I saw him. He wasn't trying to catch my attention, and yet, somehow, he did. There was an effortless presence about him, the kind of confidence that didn't need to announce itself. It simply existed, like sunlight spilling into a dim room. At first, I thought I was imagining things, that my mind was playing tricks on me, making someone look more remarkable than they actually were. But no, he was real, and he was staring right at me. The first thing I noticed was his eyes, sharp, curious, and warm at the same time. They had a way of making me feel simultaneously exposed and safe, as if he could see through every layer I'd built around myself. My heart, which had been quietly settling into its predictable rhythm of caution, skipped a beat. I wanted to look away, tell myself to stop imagining stories before they existed, but I couldn't. There was a pull I didn't understand yet. He spoke to me, and his voice carried the kind of calm certainty I didn't realize I had been craving. Not arrogant, not rehearsed, just genuine. There was a question in his eyes, an invitation almost, and I felt a flicker of excitement that I hadn't experienced in years. It was terrifying and intoxicating all at once. I caught myself smiling, awkwardly at first, then with a little more ease, surprised that I even wanted to engage. I kept thinking, who is this man? Why now? Everything about that moment felt surreal, like a page turning in a book I thought had already ended. The small gestures, the way he tilted his head when he listened, the subtle laugh that hinted at an unspoken depth, made me feel a flutter of anticipation I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. My thoughts raced. I'm 29. I should be over being enchanted by strangers. I should be practical. But why does this feel different? Even walking away later, I couldn't shake the image of him from my mind. It wasn't just his looks or his confidence. It was the way he made me feel seen, truly seen, in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time in years, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was a possibility that life had more to offer than the quiet, invisible existence I'd been settling into. Something had shifted in me that day, though I didn't know it yet, and I had no idea that this first encounter would ignite a connection that would challenge everything I thought I knew about love, desire, and myself. After that first encounter, I couldn't stop thinking about him. It wasn't just curiosity, it was something deeper, something I hadn't felt in years. Every time my phone buzzed, My heart hoped it would be him, though I tried not to get my hopes up. When he finally reached out, it was casual, almost nonchalant, but every word he typed carried a weight I couldn't ignore. Our conversation started small, questions about work, books we liked, music, but quickly grew into something more intimate. I found myself sharing thoughts I usually kept hidden, worries about getting older, moments when I felt invisible, dreams I barely admitted to myself. And he listened, not in a polite, fleeting way, but with a presence that made me feel like my words mattered, like my story mattered. There was something quietly magnetic about him. The way he didn't rush me, the way he allowed silence to linger comfortably, made me feel safe enough to lower my guard. It was intoxicating. I realized I hadn't felt this kind of connection in a long time, not with anyone. And yet, part of me hesitated. I was 29, he was 41, and I couldn't help but wonder what people would think if they knew. Age, race, wealth, they all seemed to create invisible boundaries, and I was hyper aware of everyone. But he never made me feel judged. Instead, he challenged my insecurities with a gentle confidence that made me question why I'd ever doubted myself. Our meetings were never rushed. Coffee turned into long walks, which turned into dinner, and eventually, late night conversations where we shared secrets only whispered in the dark. Each moment built anticipation, a slow burning fire that neither of us could ignore. It wasn't reckless or dramatic. It was deliberate, meaningful. I noticed little things, the way his eyes lit up when I spoke about something I loved, the subtle way he remembered details I'd thought he'd forgotten. And in those moments, I began to see myself differently, not as someone whose glow had dimmed, but as someone capable of reigniting it. There were nights I lay awake, thinking about him, wondering if I was falling too fast, or maybe not fast enough. I questioned everything, my own worth, whether I deserved a love so intense, whether I was ready for the kind of vulnerability he demanded. But something in me wanted to take the risk, to see where this could go. He made me laugh, challenged me, and somehow mirrored back the version of myself I'd been too afraid to embrace. The confident, radiant woman I'd almost forgotten existed. With every interaction, I felt layers of doubt peeling away, replaced by a curiosity and excitement that felt both thrilling and terrifying. It wasn't just a connection, it was a mirror, reflecting a version of me that had been hidden for too long. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, I began to realize that this slow burning bond wasn't just about him. It was about reclaiming my own glow, one conversation, one glance, and one lingering touch at a time. Even as our connection deepened, a storm of doubt brewed quietly inside me. I couldn't ignore the voice that whispered every insecurity I had, every reason to pull back. Can someone like him really love me? I asked myself this question constantly, turning it over in my mind like a puzzle I couldn't solve. I was 29, and the world had taught me to believe that my best years were behind me, that passion and excitement were for younger, more desirable versions of myself. And here he was, a 41-year-old billionaire, exuding confidence and success, looking at me like I was the only woman who mattered. My mind screamed contradictions. Why would he want someone like me? Society's voice added its own weight. The whispers about age gaps, racial differences, and power imbalances kept circling in my head. I worried about what people would think if they knew. Would friends assume I was chasing money? Or would family worry I was stepping into something dangerous? I couldn't deny the fear that I might be setting myself up for heartbreak, that the more I allowed myself to feel, the more I risked. My rational mind clashed violently with my heart, and every time he sent a text or laughed at something I said, it felt like stepping closer to a flame I wasn't sure I could handle. And yet, even in my doubts, There was a magnetic pull I couldn't resist. The way he looked at me, it wasn't lust or casual interest, it was recognition. He saw me, really saw me, in a way I hadn't been seen in years. That recognition made my heart ache with longing, but also with fear. I found myself second guessing every word I said, every smile I offered, afraid of revealing too much or seeming too eager. But hiding felt impossible, like trying to dim a light that was desperate to shine again. The internal conflict grew as I realized it wasn't just about him, it was about me. My insecurities, my doubts, the stories I told myself about age and worthiness, they all came crashing forward. And I had to confront them. Every laugh, every gentle touch, every moment of connection forced me to decide, would I let fear dictate my life, or would I take the risk and embrace something extraordinary? It was exhausting, terrifying, and exhilarating all at once. And so, I lingered on the edge, torn between retreat and surrender, between caution and desire. I didn't have answers yet, but I knew one thing. Whatever happened next, it would demand honesty, not just with him, but with myself. I had to decide whether I was willing to fight for the spark I felt or whether I'd let my fears snuff it out before it had a chance to blaze. And deep down, I suspected that this choice might change me forever. The moment everything shifted came on a night I'll never forget. I had been wrestling with my doubts for days, convincing myself to keep a safe distance, to protect my heart before it was too late. But he wasn't the kind of man who let silence linger without meaning. That night, as we sat across from each other, he leaned forward, his eyes steady on mine, and said, "You don't have to pretend with me. I see you." Those words cracked something open inside me. My walls, the ones I had spent years building, suddenly felt fragile, almost unnecessary. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that maybe someone could see the beauty in me that I'd been too afraid to acknowledge. My heart raced, torn between fear and surrender. He didn't stop there. He spoke about how he admired my resilience, how he noticed the strength I carried even when I didn't realize it myself. "You think you've lost your glow," he said softly, "but it's still there. You just don't see it for a moment." I couldn't breathe. Tears stung my eyes, not because I was sad, but because I felt something I hadn't felt in so long. Validated, cherished, seen. In that instant, I realized this wasn't just about attraction or infatuation. This was about me confronting the lies I had told myself about who I was and what I deserved. His words weren't saving me, they were reminding me of the fire I had buried beneath layers of doubt. It was like he was holding up a mirror, and for the first time in years, I saw myself clearly, radiant, alive, worthy. That night was the turning point, not because he proved anything to me, but because I finally allowed myself to believe it. I could either keep living in the shadows of fear or step fully into the light of possibility. And in that moment, I chose to step forward. Once I let myself lean into what I was feeling, everything seemed to shift between us. The hesitation that once wrapped itself around every interaction loosened, replaced with a warmth I couldn't deny. What started as long conversations stretched into stolen glances, lingering touches, and a quiet electricity that seemed to hum between us no matter where we were. It wasn't dramatic or rushed. It was steady, powerful, and impossible to ignore. I remember one evening in particular. We had gone out for dinner, nothing extravagant, just a small, tucked away place where no one cared who he was or who I was. We laughed until our sides hurt, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to hold back. I didn't feel invisible. He reached across the table, brushing his fingers against mine, and that simple gesture lit something inside me I thought I'd lost forever. It wasn't the touch itself, it was the way it made me feel wanted, cherished, as though my presence alone was enough to make the moment whole. Every interaction after that seemed to grow heavier with meaning. The way he looked at me across a crowded room, the softness in his voice when he said my name, it all told me this was more than casual interest. There was a fire building, slow but undeniable, and I could feel it consuming every bit of doubt I had left. I found myself becoming braver, leaning into the connection instead of running from it. I admitted things I hadn't spoken aloud in years. My fears of not being enough, of time slipping past me, of being forgotten. And instead of pulling away, he leaned closer. His response wasn't grand or rehearsed. He simply told me, "You are unforgettable. You always will be." That night, I believed him. The romance that bloomed between us wasn't the kind that demanded attention or proved itself through lavish gestures. It was quieter, deeper, more intentional. It was in the way he made me laugh when I was overthinking, in the way he listened as though every word I spoke was a treasure, in the way he held me like I was something precious, not fragile, but cherished. For the first time in years, I felt alive in every sense. My body, my heart, my spirit. What surprised me most was how natural it all felt, as though we had been waiting for this connection without even knowing it. The fire didn't roar suddenly. It built steadily, burning brighter with each moment we chose to trust it. And as it grew, I realized this wasn't just about him making me feel alive. It was about me allowing myself to be loved, fully and without apology. The glow I thought I had lost wasn't gone. It was being rekindled, and this time it burned from the inside out. Loving him didn't just change the way I felt about romance, it changed the way I saw myself. For so long, I believed that turning 29 meant fading into the background, that my brightest days were behind me. But through his eyes, I began to see another truth. Glow isn't tied to age, it's tied to how deeply you allow yourself to live, to feel, to love. He never tried to fix me or reshape who I was. Instead, he reminded me of the strength I'd always carried, the parts of myself I had buried under insecurity and doubt. Every word of encouragement, every patient moment, every gentle challenge pushed me to confront the lies I had told myself. I wasn't invisible. I had simply stopped looking at myself with compassion. The most powerful lesson I learned was that love doesn't ask you to shrink. It invites you to expand. Being with him didn't mean losing myself. It meant finding myself again. I remembered what it felt like to walk into a room with confidence, to laugh without hesitation, to embrace the woman I had become rather than mourning the girl I once was. And it wasn't just about him. Yes, his love lit the spark, but I was the one who chose to let it burn. I realized I had the power to glow at any age, to love without apology, and to carry myself with the dignity of someone who finally understood her worth. That was the transformation, recognizing that I was never broken, only waiting for the courage to see myself fully. The real test of what we had came one evening when my doubts resurfaced. We had been invited to a charity gala, the kind of event where everyone noticed everyone, and I felt the weight of every eye before we even walked in. My old insecurities came rushing back, my age, my skin, my place beside a billionaire who seemed to fit effortlessly into a world that felt foreign to me. I almost told him I couldn't go, but he refused to let me hide. He took my hand, steady and certain, and whispered, "You belong wherever you choose to stand." Those words steadied me, but it was the way he held my hand throughout the night, never once letting it go, that anchored me. In that crowded room, filled with glittering gowns and sharp stares, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, undeniable belonging. He didn't need to make a grand announcement or prove anything to the world. His quiet presence, his unwavering gaze fixed on me, spoke louder than any declaration could. As the night unfolded, I realized the choice wasn't his to make. It was mine. Would I let fear rob me of this connection? Or would I finally allow myself to step fully into love? I remembered every moment that had brought us here, the late night conversations, the laughter, the gentle affirmations that reminded me of my worth. And for the first time, I didn't hear the voices of doubt. I only heard my own heart, steady and sure, whispering that I was ready. Later that night, away from the crowd, we stood together under the glow of city lights. He turned to me, his expression uncharacteristically vulnerable, and said, "You've changed me. Loving you has reminded me what it means to feel alive again." The irony struck me. Here I had been so afraid that age had stolen my glow, yet he was telling me that my presence had reignited his own fire. In that moment, I knew the truth. Love wasn't about perfection or timing or fitting into some neat story society approved of. It was about choosing each other every day, despite the noise of the world. And as I leaned into his embrace, I felt the final piece of my old self fall away, replaced by something brighter, bolder, and infinitely freer. The resolution wasn't just in finding love with him, it was in reclaiming love for myself. I understood that glow doesn't fade with age, it deepens, and in his arms, I knew my story was only just beginning. Looking back, I realized that at 29, I thought my best years were slipping away. I thought age had stolen my glow, my confidence, my worth. But the truth is, age gave me clarity. Meeting him didn't just bring love into my life. It reminded me that the light I thought was gone had always been within me. His love simply held up a mirror until I could finally see it again. And if you're listening to my story, wondering if your glow has dimmed, let me tell you this: it hasn't. You are still radiant, still deserving, still capable of a love that sets your soul on fire. Never let fear or time convince you otherwise. If this story touched you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more stories like mine, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your own experiences of love, rediscovery, and second chances. Because sometimes telling your story is the first step to reclaiming your glow.